Hello everyone, and welcome to Utah. We are currently out in the middle of absolute nowhere, as you can probably tell, and we are just beginning our 6-day road trip in which we will be driving all the way up to Glacier National Park and back. So let's take a look at the map and our road trip itinerary. We landed in Salt Lake City late last night and will be taking a quick detour to the Bonneville Salt Flats before driving to the Sawtooth Mountains in Idaho, where we'll be staying for the next few days. Next, we will work our way up to the top of Montana, where we'll be exploring Glacier National Park for a few days before heading all the way back down to Salt Lake City to fly home. In a total, it's over 1,400 miles of driving in just 6 days. So here we go. Okay, so after an hour and a half of driving directly west from Salt Lake City Airport area, we've made it over to the Bonneville Salt Flats. This part of the Salt Flats is literally right off the side of the highway, which is so insane. The Bonneville Salt Flats were once a giant lake that took up 1/3 of the state of Utah. The lake has since receded, leaving about 30,000 acres of salt flats behind. Also, please remember that this is public land, so make sure to take care of it. And there's absolutely no camping on the salt flats. Now we're headed over to the second part of the Salt Flats that's known as the Bonneville Speedway. This is a good spot to take your car onto the flats if you wish to do so, since it's a set-aside area to drive, meaning that you won't damage the very delicate salt surface and other area of the flats.
Alright, so what do you think we do?
I think you just drive on right there.
Like that way?
Yeah.
I don't think that way.
We're at that. Oh, okay.
That looks like too much of a...
This looks like Breaking Bad.
This does look like Breaking Bad. Wow.
Wow.
We're just on it. We are on it.
That's pretty cool.
It is like just the Wild West. I mean, look at this. It's just flat and huge and we're just driving around.
Also, just to note, never drive if there's water on the flats, so make sure you come when they're nice and dry in the summer to avoid damaging your car or getting stuck. After the Salt Flats, we're on a 4.5-hour drive up towards Ketchum, which is in central Idaho and is along the Sawtooth Scenic Byway, which is 115 miles of highway that takes you through gorgeous sections of the Sawtooth Mountains. The byway ends in Stanley, which we've decided to make our home base for exploring the Sawtooths. For our first day, we're just going to drive up the byway a bit and take in all the views. Waking up to our second day of exploring the Sawtooths, and we are visiting one of the hot springs nearby. This particular hot spring is located about an hour away, but it's just one of the many hot springs in the Sawtooth area. This one caught our attention specifically because it's actually a waterfall hot spring which flows out of the mountainside and into a river below. There are tons of other hot springs besides this one, located a lot closer to Stanley also. Some are more primitive, like wild hot springs, and others are more commercialized springs, so you can find whatever you're looking for. After the hot springs, we're headed to Redfish Lake. No trip to the Sawtooths is complete without checking out Redfish Lake. With clear water, tons of places to swim or rent a boat, and stunning views, you'll definitely want to add this spot to your itinerary. If you're interested in camping, the campsites around this area were so stunning too, and I can't wait to come back here one day and camp. Finally, we're wrapping up day 2 by watching the sunset over the Sawtooths. We literally found this spot on the side of the road only a few minutes from Stanley's town center, and it's stunning. We grabbed a pizza from Papa Bruni's and enjoyed the views. And speaking of food spots in Stanley, you also have to try the Stanley Baking Company and Cafe when you're here. This is our third and final day in the Sawtooths. We headed out bright and early to do one of the hikes in the Sawtooth Mountains. We chose the Sawtooth Lake hike, which is a 10-mile out and back trail. There are so many hikes to choose from, and we only had time for just one, unfortunately, but we really love this one. After following the trail through a forest and climbing higher up the mountain, we came to this first lake view. And continued on to the trail's final destination, which is this stunning glacial lake. There was still snow on the ground even in late July. By the time we finished the hike, it was around 2 p.m. and we needed to start the drive north toward Montana. We started the 5-hour drive to Missoula, where we'd be staying for a night before driving the next 2.5 hours to Glacier National Park the next morning.
When we wake, hear the birds and see the sun. Side by side our fears are done. Oh, the good times just begun.
Our first glimpse at Glacier National Park started with entering through the West Glacier entrance and getting onto the Going to the Sun road. You do need reservations to access the road during peak season, and luckily we were able to get reservations yesterday completely last minute. If you want to know all the tips and tricks of getting Going to the Sun road reservations, check out my complete guide to Glacier National Park in the description. Our first hike in the park was the Trail of Cedars to Avalanche Lake Trail, which totals 6 miles out and back. It's a pretty easy hike and one of the more popular ones in the park, so you definitely won't be alone on the trail. It's a very beautiful walk that winds through woods along Avalanche Creek until you reach the lake at the end. The views are pretty incredible.
Before I sleep, hear the crickets, see the moon. Side by side and through and through.
We wanted to take it easy on our first day after driving from Missoula in the morning, so we decided we would continue the rest of the Going to the Sun road the next day. So we started bright and early the next day to continue our journey up the winding mountain road toward the highest point in the park, Logan Pass. There are several viewpoints and stops along the way, which I also detail in my glacier guide.
With you and I, the future is bright.
We decided to drive all the way through to the St. Mary's entrance where the Going to the Sun road ends and continue on to the mini glacier entrance where we plan to do one of our bucket list hikes. There are so many incredible hikes to choose from that begin at the mini glacier entrance, but we only had time for one, so we ended up choosing the Grinnell Glacier Trail. The hike is usually 11 miles out and back, but the last 1.5 miles of the trail was closed due to snow and ice that hadn't melted yet. Yes, even in late July. We read reviews on all trails that said it would still be totally worth it, so we decided to do it anyway. And I'm so glad we did because it ended up being one of my favorite hikes I've ever done. This hike is moderately difficult with over 2,000 feet in elevation gain. It takes you past 3 gorgeous lakes and has incredible views the entire way. We even saw a moose. It's important to know that this is a high bear activity area, so make sure to bring your bear spray with you. After finishing the Grinnell Lake Trail, we had to drive the Going to the Sun road all the way back to the West Glacier entrance. So we decided to stop at Logan Pass and begin the Hidden Lake Overlook Trail. Unfortunately, we didn't get too far because a storm rolled in, but we did get some awesome sunset views, and we got to see some bighorn sheep.
This old town, just put it all behind. Remember you.
And that's a wrap on our road trip. We spent the entire next day driving 10 hours back to Salt Lake City before flying back home. Thanks so much for following along. I hope you guys found this video helpful, and please check out my guides on the Sawtooths and Glacier National Park in the video description if you want my fully planned trip itinerary. Subscribe to my channel for more adventures to come.
Where will you go? Won't you miss the